Musical Sounds. We welcome you to this another interesting and educative segment on music, and today we are discussing a subject on music and addiction. And I think someone is addicted to playing the keyboard.
Sometimes I am addicted, but not now, at least not now.
All right. And today on our trivia session, we want to invite you to please share with us, do you feel that you can't do a day without listening to a particular song or a particular kind of music? If that's your feeling, please share with us what music this is or what song this is. Feel free to share with us on the numbers below. Now, do you want to tell me about your story of addiction to music or your experience with music?
Well, growing up, we didn't have a radio at home. And, well, I know that I loved music from childhood. When I had somebody's radio, it would feel nice. So in high school, that's the first time I got into contact with radio. And let me start by, when I moved from home, I went to my sister's place. My sister had just bought a 3 CD changer. Now, then that was good music system. But now she had this other smaller one, which had one speaker this other side. So, you know, she wanted to dispose it, and I quickly offered that I would be the beneficiary of the radio system. And, you know, I used to follow these secular musicians, Nazizi, Lucky Dube, and things like that. So at night, the problem came at night. The house was not so big, and my music system did not have very low levels. When you returned it to low,
like the knob was not...
The knob, yeah. When you return it to the lowest point, it would still disturb everyone. So I was so addicted to music that I would sacrifice my blanket so that I cover the speaker of the music system so that I reduce the sound, just so that I can listen to the music into the night, even if mosquito was dealing with the rest of my body. Of course, those who were with me in high school also know I was so addicted to secular music and dancing that every Saturday night I would be the first one at the dance hall and the last one to leave. So my addiction with music was actually, you know, real. I actually was really addicted to music.
All right, so viewer, do you know that music can actually be an addiction? You see, the same way someone can be addicted to bang, to alcohol, and it can cause addiction. Do you want to share more about this?
Yes, music is actually, it can be a blessing, but it can also be a terrible curse if it is put to wrong use. Because music excites, but it does not impart strength and courage, which you can only find in the sight or in the presence of God when you pray, you know, and when you try to understand the meaning of that music. Music will go into your system without you knowing.
All right, and some will question, because addiction is actually a scientific diagnosis, is there a science behind the addiction that is caused by music?
Yes, there's actually a study that was put on Discovery News in 2011, January. They said that this actually was a fMRI study, a scan on people who are listening to or anticipating to listen to music. The researchers found that the brain released dopamine, you talked about that in a previous show, both in anticipation of and while listening to music. The study finished by saying the reaction on the brain was similar to the reaction that occurs when somebody is a sex addict or a drug addict. That is just by music. And the writer of that article finishes by saying these findings will hopefully reveal more about brain chemistry and further the study on addiction. Music has a way in which its arrangement will cause addiction. And we read from a book called How to Conquer Addiction to Rock Music, page 82. The writer said musicians have a way in which they go against certain rules of music. And those certain rules cause you to experience a high, and that high will not be satisfied by another music of the same level. So you need another high of that music, and people keep increasing the volume, increasing the sounds, increasing the nature of the music. So that actually makes the music that you yesterday listened to to be not satisfying. Steven Tyler, rock band composer, the rock band is called Aerosmith. He said, rock music is the strongest drug
in the world.
In the world.
All right, that's an interesting statement there. That addiction caused by music actually plays around in the chemicals of your body. And yes, people who listen to music or anticipate to hear music experience a high in dopamine. The question is, how do you conquer this addiction? And right after the break, we'll be able to share with you how you conquer this. Welcome back. Just before the break, we were discussing how exactly music causes addiction, and I promised to share with you how exactly we can conquer this addiction. But just before that, want to see why are young people especially addicted to music. I'm sure you have seen in your house, in your church, on the street, that many young people would love to walk around with headphones, with earphones, and everyone is seemingly listening to some type of music. Why is this especially so in young people?
Well, the play is on the chemicals that we have mentioned. Dopamine, a feel-good hormone or chemical, when it releases, when it's released in your body. You know, there's another study that shows that when you listen to driving rhythms in excess of 3 to 4 beats, and the goodness is we can always illustrate, you know, such driving rhythms. That bass, when you listen to that, at the excess of 3 to 4 beats per minute, it puts your brain in a state of stress. So when that happens, whether you like the music or not, it can be reggae, you love the reggae. It can be Christian reggae, you love the Christian reggae. But as long as it has those bass, that kick, it puts your brain in a state of stress. What does the brain do when it feels that stress? Just sound. The brain releases the dopamines, which, I mean, the name of those...
It's opioids.
It's opioids, actually.
Yes.
The name of those hormones is opioids. What those hormones do is it helps the brain to return to normal state. Now, when the brain has returned to normal state, somebody may feel like, well, that is good, but there is another side effect, one of which we are speaking about. These opioids, when you experience them often enough, it can be addictive. And that's why you want to seek another higher state of listening. But something else, you want harder music. Apart from that, the opioids also release in the body something called gonadotropins. That's a long word for sex hormones. Now you understand, in fact, those sex hormones enhance arousal. Now you understand why you get into a matatu, into a car, with loud booming bass music, which you can't take. But young people seemingly like that place because their gonads or their sexual systems are still just developing. And this music kind of excites these things. They don't know that it is stimulating them. So whether it's addiction or whether it's opioids, somehow this music is not good for the mind and for the physiology.
All right, so how do you conquer this addiction?
Well, friends, the truth is the music is a tough addiction. You must decide that you are going to keep lowering, first of all, the volumes. You are going to reduce the time you spend on the music. You can decide to take, you know, free walks without mobile phones, without a device. That's some of the ways that I personally started, and it worked for me. But I know that it took a long time, long dedication, prayer. You have to decide that this addiction is going to affect me, and you may even need help. Some addiction must be treated the way all addictions are treated. You know, just like you treat medical addictions like drugs.
You actually mentioned that the music that has more than, you know, 3 or 4 beats per minute is implicated in causing this addiction. So do we also need to change the type of music, or, you know, what element in the music causes
there's this music that is so
addiction?
loud. There's so loud music, like you know, not really loud but fast.
Yes.
Any music that is built to run very fast, you know, like techno, like clubhouse, any music that is built to run very fast. That's one characteristic. The second thing is, once you have that booming bass, whether it's slow or fast, some are slow like in R&B, that is going to be bad. So I'm going to talk about that later. Reduce or try listening to classical music that doesn't have the bass itself. Listen to slower, calm music that corresponds with the heart rate, with normal walking pace.
So classical music cannot be addictive?
We can say for now, because of our definition of classical music, in one of the episodes we say classical music is music where the rhythm is not so loud, is not pronounced, but it is implied.
All right, so what you're proposing is that the element in the music that causes this addiction is the rhythm. It's
the rhythm. In fact, we read for you from Joseph Marklis. I told you Joseph Marklis has a PhD in drumming. He says rhythm is the element in music most closely allied to body movement, to physical action. Its simple, repeated patterns causes a hypnotic effect. That hypnotic effect is therefore linked to addiction. So loudness is one thing, rhythm is another, and then repetitiveness. You know, why you get addicted to something is you do it over and over. And rhythm simply something that keeps repeating itself. Ta, ta, ta. That repetition itself. That's why good music will not have that as a big part of it. It will put melody ahead, because melody keeps changing. It's the meaning, the feeling, the words. All right? Then it puts harmony next. Harmony speaks to the mind. We talked about that. And then it puts rhythm down under, you know, as a smaller element. Of course, we also showed you the studies where music that is carving bass is considered a brain drain. Yes, exactly.
All right, so the element of music that would cause easy addiction, as he has explained, is the rhythm and the repetitiveness of the rhythms, and sometimes even the words in music. Do you want to share more about this?
Well, I want to talk about now, there is a question people ask. You talk about rhythms. Rhythms come from drums, but we are Africans. We are born rhythmic. We are born with drums. The question is, did drums originate with Africans? I would like to show you something interesting, that drums from competent history did not originate with Africans. Drums originated from Mesopotamia. If you want to know, it's called the place where the Samaritans lived. Then it moved to Egypt. Everybody who has read the Bible knows how the Samaritans, or the people who lived in the place called Ur of the Chaldeans, how they ended up in Egypt. They're the ones who took drums there. So you'll find Dr. Ruben telling you that Egypt is where modern historians will trace the origin of rock music with drums, because rock music is the music that brought drums to music. Right? Earlier there was no drums. So it's not actually Egypt. This music, competent history traces it to the Ur of the Chaldeans, and you will read that story in Deuteronomy 12:31, when the women would play hand drums and they were worshipping a god called Moloch, and they would offer their children as sacrifice. The drum was a central part of their worship. Then from Egypt, that drum was spread to West and Central Africa, and later you hear the Central Africans using it for voodoo worship, and there's a lot of history on that. I could read from a book called The World of the Unexplained.
All right, hold it right there, and right after the break you can continue to hear the story of the drums and addiction and how exactly to conquer it. Join us. Welcome back. Just before the break, we learned that rhythm is one of the elements that can highly cause addictions. And he asked the question about drums and it starting in Africa. We just learned that drums actually started from Mesopotamia and went to Egypt, and from Egypt you could now trace their origins through slave trade into the Americas, and you could actually find that drums are closely associated with rock. And tell us more about these drums.
The drums came from Egypt, went to West Africa and Central Africa. And here is where you'd find the followers of voodoo. That name could be familiar to some. Voodoo was the worship of idols. No, it's actually demon worship. If you look at it, you trace it clearly. Because they would have tribes coming with many drums, and they would bang complex rhythms. They are called polyrhythms. And then they would leap and jump. Sometimes they would do things that are related to demon worship. And there is just a way in which, when just the right rhythm was found for every god with a small g, the lower, then the names of those gods were lower, the god would enter into the person, and you'd see that the movement of that person changed, or the person was now behaving differently when the lower entered his soul, or something like that. Even in our own country, there are people whose music is more drum-based.
And I tend to think that if music can cause addiction, can it be used to manipulate people into doing things that you don't want to do? Like the way, if someone has taken alcohol, sometimes you end up doing things you didn't, want to do, or you didn't plan to do. So can music have the same effect?
Yes, the fact that it's going to be addictive, then music can pass messages to your subconscious that you don't want. Music can cause you to do things you don't want. You can actually buy something that you didn't want to buy because somebody sang about it. So music manipulation, the book in Family Weekly magazine said music is used everywhere to condition the human mind. It is a powerful drug, and that is what makes it more dangerous is not many people take musical manipulation seriously. So there are good effects to music, even in the side of manipulation, but there are also bad effects to it.
So like when an advertiser wants you to buy their product, they put good music to it. So if music is this powerful, if it can cause addiction, is there a spiritual side effect to this? Yes,
truth. There is something called anhedonia. You can explain what anhedonia means, because it's actually a disease. Today, people are anhedonic. It's a condition. It's a disease. It's a problem. It's a huge issue. The medics, we want to call it a condition. What's anhedonia? Then I can explain how that is related to music.
Like anhedonia is you have reduced pleasure from activities that would otherwise cause pleasure. Yeah, so you have an increased threshold for you experiencing pleasure.
That means when I was growing up, the first time I saw a little piano like this, I was so excited by it. The sight of that piano, the walking out in nature, just spending time with my parents, my mother bringing back sweets at home would cause me extreme pleasure. Today, those normal things don't cause us pleasure because we have assaulted, or we have overstimulated the pleasure center in our brain, and music is the chief culprit of overstimulating that pleasure center. So people today sitting in church listening to just a good hymn, they don't feel good. They are not excited because they are used to music that is always overstimulating the pleasure center. So that's a serious spiritual condition, because you don't get pleasure from just sitting with your family. Where have you to get pleasure? From the dance hall. Don't get pleasure from just walking, taking nature walk in an evening. Where will you get pleasure? Funny lights, you have to have disco lights everywhere, and concerts, and people are not used to normal, quiet music. That's called anhedonia. Christians find that dangerous, and we're going to share that in our very last segment of this show.
All right, there is also another danger, especially of listening to addictive music, and that is in what you explained in an earlier show called hypnotism.
Yes.
You see, when you hypnotize people with repetitive rhythms, repetitive words, what happens is after the music, people are not able to endure sound doctrine. You have people in church, people attending church, but because you've been hypnotized, any doctrine, even if it's not from the Bible, is taught to you, but you readily accept it because of the hypnotic effect of the music. Yeah.
Let's end today with a certain thought before we can sing for you a music that is not addictive but very interesting. From a book called Testimonies to the Church, Volume 1, page 5 or 6. It says music has become an idol. That means it's taken your thought, your attention, your time. Let me read it as it is. Music has occupied the hours which should have been devoted to prayer. And you see this in many churches on a music Sabbath. They'll tell you, come and preach to us in the morning, and in the afternoon we'll just sing all through. You'll just do a little sharing, a little. And if you try going 15 minutes, and you have a whole 4 hours, they want to use it for music only. When Sabbath hours are supposed to be balanced between praise, worship, and things like that. So music is the idol which many profess Sabbath-keeping Christians, and even those who don't keep the Sabbath, many people today have music as an idol. And Satan has no objection to the music if he can use it as a channel through which he can gain access to the mind. So I think music is very serious. It's something that can be a blessing to us when it is used correctly, but it can be a terrible curse. You can be hooked to bad music, to even some people can be hooked to good music, but now they become unproductive.
All right, so music, when not abused, is a great blessing, but when put to wrong use, it can be a terrible curse. And we pray that God will lead you today and break down the chains of addiction and help you to choose good music. God bless you as you listen to this song. In shady green pastures, God leads us along.
In shady green pastures, so rich and so sweet, God leads his dear children along. Where the water's cool flow makes down weary one's feet, God leads his dear children along. Some through the water, some through the flood, some through the fire, but all through the blood. Some through great sorrows, but God gives a song in the night season and all the day long. Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is He. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. Let not your heart be troubled. His tender word I hear, and resting on His goodness. Then by the hand He leadeth, but one step I may see, that His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. And I know He watches me. Yes, I know He watches me. He watches me, watches me, watches me, watches me.